Hey there, are you thinking about getting your songs recorded, and have you ever wondered what it's like to record in a Nashville studio? In this video, I'm interviewing Nashville producer Evan Sieling, and we talk all about how to prepare to record in a studio, what to send to your producer, how to find the right producer for you, and even what not to do in a studio. So all of that is coming up. I've created a free checklist for you on how to prepare to record in a studio. The link is in the description below. You can also find it at rusticsongbird.com/checklist. It covers a lot of what we talk about here in this interview. I'm Lydia Walker from rusticsongbird.com, and this interview was recorded for the Rustic Songbird podcast, but you get to see the behind the scenes in this video. Enjoy! My guest on the show today is Evan Sieling. He is a producer in Nashville, Tennessee, and we've just recorded a project together, so this is fresh on our minds. But I've asked Evan to come on the show and just to talk about the recording process. If you're a songwriter or an artist getting ready to record your own songs or wanting to have that studio experience, we're going to talk all about it, about what to do and what not to do when you're recording in a studio. So, Evan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's awesome to do this with you.
Yeah, I feel like I could talk about this all day, and you probably could too, because we just love creating music and all the technical side of things as well. So you're the perfect person to talk about this. Really quickly, tell our listeners a little bit about you, kind of how you got started in music and production, and why you're passionate about it.
Yeah, so I moved to Nashville about 10 years ago and came here to tour and I just wanted to play with different artists or whatever. And um, I'd been recording bands just kind of in my bedroom since I was in high school and just always liked it. I had like a little two input audio interface and Ableton Live 2, which probably very few people know what that is, but it was old. So, and I loved it. And I went to college for a year and then I dropped out. But through all that, I was like recording and I don't know. I guess I've always been drawn to the magic of like putting something down and then you put another thing down and another thing and it starts to feel like something, and that felt really special to me. So about 4 or 5, so I was recording demos and doing the occasional record. I was buying gear all through my early 20s, and then probably 4 years ago I was on tour, and the gig ended, and I kind of just had a come to Jesus moment and realized like what I wanted out of life. Kind of moving full time into production was the path for me. So, it was scary because for a while, I made my living playing guitar and piano for people, and this was something that I've been doing kind of casually for a long time. But I realized that, like, I guess touring was like my boyhood dream, but I was better at production. And so, which is funny. I think a lot of people are opposite, like they're players, but they want to be producers. But I guess I was on the opposite side of things. And so, um, yeah, I just kind of made the switch and quit riding two horses at once. And as soon as I fully committed to production, it just started to really take off in a wonderful way. And yeah, that leads us to where we are now. So,
So
uh,
cool. And there's something to be said for being focused and having one goal, one priority, and just say, this is who I am. And
yep.
for so many people, it takes such a long time to get to that one point. Like, I am a songwriter, or I am an artist, or I am a guitarist, or I am a producer. Like, once you know, then you can just run with it. But I think figuring that out is the hard part.
Well, I think in Malachi it says, "Without a vision, the people perish." Right. So I think that's Malachi. But like that applies to so many areas of your life, whether it's your
Yeah.
marriage or if you know where you're headed, or you know what direction you're going in, you're actually moving forward. Whereas I think until you're like, this is what I need to be doing, I'm going to figure it out. I'm not afraid to start small. I'm just going to keep taking another step every day. Uh, you know, once you get to that point, you become really dangerous.
Hmm.
You really start to
Yeah.
make so.
I like what you said. That applies to any point of your life. When you just have focus in one area and you are committed to it and you just don't stop. Like you keep going on it, work on it every day, whether that's to be the best guitarist you can be or the best songwriter you can be, or if you're just going to say, hey, I'm going to be the best person that I can be, then you're not comparing it to anybody else. And really, the sky's the limit on how you can improve your own skills and how you can impact the world with what you're good at.
Yep, I agree with that 100%. So
I love that so much. And when you're doing something you love, it just makes it so much more like more valuable because you know that you're helping people, that you're doing good work, putting good things out into the world. And so it's kind of a job. It does take a lot of hard work, but it's just so worth it.
yeah, there's a point to it, and I think that God um, gave us individually things that feed us more than other people. And I I would venture to say for you and definitely for me, like making music and telling stories feels really compelling. And so when I go into my studio and do that every day, um, I'm something's right, there's something right with the world. I feel fulfilled, and I feel like helping people is a big part of my like journey and my purpose in life, and that's how it comes to fruition. You know,
Yeah,
um,
and that's very evident in how you do your work and just how you care about people. We've had such good conversations in the studio, and I kind of wish those were recorded because we've talked about so many things just in the process of recording this music, because it is creating something new and you're trying to figure out, what does the world need to hear, and let's create something that can,
yeah,
help a problem or encourage someone who's in a low point, or just relating to people on their level where they're at. And so I think as music creators, we have that opportunity to do something pretty amazing and connect with people.
we do. I actually tell people. I have a couple young producers that I mentor, and I tell them that production is 80% psychology and 20% actually like doing the work. Because like if you came into my studio and you're like, hey, I want to record a song, and uh there's no emotional connection, or you don't feel safe in my space, um like I mean, why how are you going to create a compelling recording that's honest to you in
Yeah.
that space? Like you're just not going to. And so I do a lot of things, and I think part of it's just kind of who I am. um, and I like to be real with people. Um, so if we sit down and before we like immediately start making something, I need to know you, and I need to have some kind of relationship so that we can grow together. And a lot of time, I mean, if you're making a real record, you're asking hard questions, or you're talking about things that are important to you because you wrote that into a song. So obviously, hopefully, it's important to you. And if it's not, I'm gonna tell you to go back and write songs that mean to you.
Yeah.
Uh, I'll ask for that, So I think like, um, anyways, yeah, I think the psychology side of it is really, whether it's counsel. I mean, I can't tell you how many like breakup records I've done where I didn't sign up to be the counselor, or the person like buying the ice cream and wine, but I am, and I'm fine with that. Like I actually love that because I'm caring for somebody in their point of need, and we all need that at some point. So might as well like do it, in an inspiring space, and just hit record and see what happens.
Yeah, I think
Um,
that community aspect is so important, of just like you said, building the relationship, knowing that you can trust each other, that you're both on the same page on what you want it to become. And then I feel like it becomes something even more beautiful because you are like confident in the process and you just let it flow. And creative people need that. I feel like if we get like caught up in all the details, then we could miss the magic of something really cool that could have happened if we just were comfortable in the space.
Absolutely. And like you record that comfort or that discomfort in when like one thing I've learned about recording singers and the human voice, and down to instruments too, but you can fake it with an instrument a little bit more. But like, I can't like edit you to feel relaxed and happy and at peace, or or if a song's angry, I can't try to make you sound more. It's gonna feel fake. It just feels forced. So um helping you get to that place where you can be living and be fully present always comes out in the final product.
Yep, I experienced that on one of the songs. I think I was recording like the week I was pregnant and overdue, and I was like really trying hard to get this right take. And you said, you know what? Why don't we just record that vocal on another day? And we did, and it sounded so much better. Like I came back in with a newborn baby, and I'm like super happy, and I don't have all that pressure on my rib cage that's like pushing my breath support out of whack. And it sounded so much better. And so like just to have the clarity of saying, you know what, let's do something else right now and come back around to it. And just to know that, one take is not gonna kill the project. You can come back and redo it.
Well, and I don't know if we should divulge this, but I think almost all the songs are actually the scratch track on the vocals.
Almost, yeah. Kind of like the most comfortable. Like I just listened to the music. You had already tracked the band, and I just went in there and sang it. And so some of that is the most raw and honest and like comfortable sound, because I wasn't expecting it to be the final take, and so I didn't care as much, and it actually sounded really good.
Yeah, there's just sort of a piece about it. And I mean, I will say, like, you're a great singer, so like we could get away with that. That's not always the case.
That's not normal. Like other times I've had to really go like line by line and make everything exactly how I want. And I think we did that. We just tweaked a few things and kept most of the first vocal.
Yeah. But man, I feel like whenever stuff like that happens, that feels really special to me. Like it feels like God's like, there you go. Like, this doesn't have to be like, you don't have to like strive to get this. And I feel really held in those moments as a producer.
Yeah, that doesn't always happen. And so with this project, it was really fun because I felt the message of these songs so strongly. I was just literally singing it from my heart, and that's what came across. And so that emotion was captured, like you mentioned earlier, like the confidence or the happiness that comes across. And that's more important than being like technically correct on everything or doing the most fancy things with my voice. It was just like, no, let me get across what I'm trying to say.
Yep, exactly. And that's something that I place a really high value on. And every record's different. I sort of have to assess and evaluate when we're talking beforehand about the kind of record we're making, and hearing the songs and getting to know somebody, what's going to put them in the best headspace to feel real inspired and creative. And it's different for everybody, and everybody's in a different season in life. And for some, you've recorded a lot, but some people haven't recorded a lot. And so they get in and they're like, this is my shot. This is now or never. Which is not true, for one.
But it feels like it.
Yeah, it does. And you're like, I'm spending all this money, and like I've told everybody I'm doing this, so like I have to like do this cool thing. And ironically, what happens is when you do that, like you start to like tense up and like go inward, and you start to feel stress and anxiety, which is the like opposite thing you want to do when you're recording. You know?
So you feel like you're coaching people like, hey, relax, we can do this take again, or we can come back on another day, like relieve some of that stress and anxiety of trying to get it right the first time.
Yeah. And I also like I'll try to listen to somebody's voice memos or whatever I've got, and like I'll pick a microphone for them before they even come. And like when we cut your scratch tracks, as far as all the gear I was using what I would have used on the final record, knowing that we might want to pull like a line or two from those scratch tracks that felt great. And we ended up like pulling all of it.
A lot of it was so good. So just being prepared on the front end and knowing like this quality is good enough to use just whenever it's the right take.
Well, I think maybe this is selfish on my side, but like if you hear yourself back for the first time, when you hear yourself back for the first time in my studio, I want you to be like, oh shoot, that sounds amazing. Like he is treating my voice right. And because then that just, for me, that builds trust with an artist. Like they trust that I'm gonna do a great job, and that makes everybody's job easier. Because if you want to cut a record with me and you don't trust me, then you're going to be challenging every single decision I make, whether you know what I'm doing or not, just because you're like afraid. So if I can instill confidence in you right away and just have it be like, wow, this is shaping up quick. Like, I feel like that lifts the whole process. And like our recording that record for us was easy. And it was, there were one or two times where it was like, all right, let's like back away from this for a minute and figure it out. But like for the most part, it was just like inspiration on inspiration. And I was kind of showing you like, hey, you can trust me. Like I care about this a lot. I'm invested in this. And sometimes I get that wrong, but like hopefully like the more I do it, the more I'm able to, I don't know, just be a good listener. Like listen to what they're saying, but also their body language. Pay attention to the music that they like, that's on their Spotify, whatever it is, and just be aware of all that to kind of help like guide the whole thing in the right direction. I don't want to make a record that you don't like, like that
Right.
seems like a waste of my time.
Yeah, so instead of assuming that you know what they want, you ask the questions and you say, is this what you're explaining? Is this what you thought it should sound like? And then while you're in that process, you can tweak it. You can look back at the drawing board and redo something. Sometimes we would switch out an instrument and it would completely change the whole style and vibe of the song. And so it's important to be able to ask those questions as you're going, so it doesn't become something that it wasn't intended to be. But I had that same experience when I first walked into the studio to record those scratch vocals. I put the headphones on and I was like, wow, this sounds really good. I feel like I don't have to strain my voice.
Yeah.
And it sounded really good. Like it was just the right amount of effects to kind of like fill it up, but it wasn't like echoey or weird. The music was the right level, so I didn't feel like it was overpowering my voice, but I didn't feel like it was too quiet where I couldn't sing out. So it was really the perfect mix, and that's hard to get because I've been in several places, whether it's like performing and having in-ears or being in a studio, and like I didn't really know what the levels should be, so they were too low or too loud, and then I sing differently based on that. And so that was one thing that I really had a good experience, just immediately putting on the headphones and I'm like, this is perfect. I love it. Let's go.
We call that in the music industry, we call that bedside manner. Whether it's like, hey, do you need tea? I have room temperature water.
In a mason jar.
Yeah, in a mason jar. I don't want it to be too like stiff in here. And then like, your voice sounding great. That to me is like I'm serving you. And because it gets a better product and you feel better, you feel more inspired, you're more likely, if you feel comfortable, you're more likely to be like, I don't like that sound. Whereas if you're afraid that I like don't like you or something, then you're less likely, and then you hold resentment, and then at the end of the project you get done with a song and you're like, I don't really like how this turned out. And that to me is a fail, because like once we're done working on this, you have to go out and be like, this is my record. I don't have to do that in the same way, and stand out there publicly. And, so like, to me, it's a huge goal of mine, to make a record that's you, and it's a reflection of where you're at this point in your life. And, that's really well spoken, that captures, your journey and, kind of where you're at in life. So,
I love it. Well, I've got a few questions for you, just from the perspective of someone that's maybe written some songs and wants to record but hasn't recorded in a studio before, just to know what to expect as far as the like industry standards or even like just your process of how you go about things, to give them an example of what they might look forward to and experience to do that. So first of all, like when somebody just contacts you out of the blue, whether it's like you see them in person or you get an email or somebody calls or texts you, however they contact you and they say, hey, like I'd be interested in recording I'd like to talk to you about it. What is your first like initial response or questions for them?
Yeah. So first of all, if you email my website, it'll go straight to my manager, and she'll do some of that, but like, and she'll do a lot of like the business side of the things. But some of my like things that I really value, or that I'll ask for. First of all, I want to hear like what you're writing, and I want to hear why you're writing it, and like why, and it's not like not challenging you, but I want to know like what's your purpose behind it, what's like speaking to you. I want to know what kind of music you're listening to right now. Um, I won't do it every style of music. So if you want to do like a metal record or hard rock record, I'm the wrong person for that.
Yep,
Uh,
I was the exception.
yeah, only
Just
your
kidding.
new
No,
metal.
so talk a little bit about like what your ideal genres would be. Like, what are you really focusing on?
Yeah, so I primarily work with singer-songwriters, and solo artists. I probably do like 2 bands a year. I just did a duo, and I love it so much. But it's different cutting a whole band, and I can do it. I've got the resources to do it, but I I like the intimacy, I guess, of somebody being like, I wrote these songs, and I just want them to have a voice. So I'm getting into country a little bit right now, but primarily like folk, singer, songwriter. Um, if you want stuff to like that like feels good, if you want to sound like it's a warm hug, or if you want it to sound like it's really honest or true to you, that I would say is I'm a good candidate for
Oh,
that.
that's perfect. I saw on your Instagram stories the other day that you were busted out of dobro and were playing some country, and you said like everything sounds country now because I'm
Yeah,
really excited about my dobro.
yeah, it's really funny. So yeah, I literally bought that dobro for one song I was working on. I was like, you know what? This really needs a dobro. So I literally drove to Guitar Center, bought a dobro,
And
and
now you've got it.
I've got it.
So if somebody needs a dobro solo,
I
you're
can run
ready.
a dobro. Yeah. But yeah, so I think I would going back to what I want from an artist, or kind of the early stages. I'm gonna I want to hear the songs you're writing. And then at the same time, my manager is going to be talking about price, and sorting out a budget with you, if you want to move forward. Now, hopefully, if you're approaching me, I get two kinds of inquiries. One are from people that have heard something I've produced and are like, I like what you're doing. That's what I want. Um, and that's I'm like, okay, cool. The other side are people that are like, I'm just looking for somebody to like record my stuff. um and that's fine, but usually I don't those aren't quite as appealing to me, because what you want could be like a completely different plant than what I actually do. I and honestly, with most of those, I end up sending them, not all of them, but most of them, I end up sending them to another producer that I know that would be a better fit for what they're trying to do. But I'll say, hey, like, what are you looking for? What's your purpose with this? And it's hard getting into it if you don't know anybody. Um, like, where do you get started? Like, you just basically have to go around and cold email some people. My suggestion would be, if you want to make a record and you don't know a producer that you'd love to work with, um, go find who made the record that you like, and just seek it out. Do a little bit of work, and then email them or their manager, see how much they cost, see if it's doable for you, um, and talk to like a couple people. You'll be surprised at how open and inviting people are, in the music industry, that, are, I don't know, if you have something cool going on there, they'll probably love to be involved with it. So,
That's so good. That's such good advice to look at the artists or the albums that you're really enjoying, the sounds
yeah,
that you like, and then just contact that producer. They might not be available or a good fit or whatever, but they might be able to point you in the right direction, and just starting to ask those questions could really open a door.
yep. And
So
I think the more people you talk to, the better picture you're going to get of how it looks as a whole too. Like, I'm not in a, you know, you can't come, don't come to me expecting me to make you a star, you know, like I'll make you an amazing record, but there's so much more that goes into it, you know, and there's so much more that's important in life than being a star too. But like, like I would say, yeah, just like talk to people, educate yourself, like go look for podcasts and go on YouTube and how to make a record, you know, like what do I do as a new artist? And I think another thing that's really important to me, whether if this is your first time, you're either 15 or it's a hobby. Like you're probably not touring full time, making a living from music and about to make a record. Maybe you work in a church and you're a worship leader. I could see that. But, you know, I would say educate yourself and recognize that doing this is going to be work. Like, this is my job. I show up to it every day and I work on records. And I don't like, for me, making records isn't like, I look at it like golf sometimes because, like, you know, people play golf as a hobby, but then there's people that like play golf professionally. And if you want to be doing this professionally, you need to treat it like it's a legitimate thing and like putting work. I have this duo, not the people I just worked with, but another one that I've been recording like probably a song a year for them for like 3 or 4 years, and I love their music so much, but they don't show up to it every day. They're just kind of like, oh, it's whatever, like, you know, um and I'm just like, you guys could be so good and you could be so far in your career if you wanted it. And maybe you don't want it. You know, maybe you just want to make a record because it's a fun hobby, and that's okay. But if you want to work with like a professional producer, or you want to like see significant financial returns from music, you can do that, but you have to like put a little investment in on the front end with your time, with your intention, and with your money, probably.
Yes, that's so important. And for creative people, especially that are not really business savvy or not really into the like the marketing side of things, it's really scary because what do you do with this project, you know? And so that initial investment is really scary of I might put up all this music to record and then nobody buy it, you know? And so there's like a lot of fear that goes into that. But I'd like to talk about just the difference between like an hourly rate and a flat fee, because I have a soapbox about this, but I want to hear your take on what's the difference between the two.
Yeah. So I actually am pretty strict with just doing a flat rate. Um, there's a couple reasons for that, and they are all actually really geared towards the artist. Primarily, if you're having a bad day and you come in and you have to cut a vocal and you cut a bad vocal, you're like, well, I'm spending money to be here, so I need to like power through this or whatever. I'm not into that. I don't want to make records that you don't feel good about. So, and like maybe we cut a song and like you don't love how something turned out in it, but you're like, yeah, but it's going to cost so much more money to like redo this. Um, I just don't think that's like conducive to getting what you want. And for me, if you get what you want, it's good business. So, you know, I want you to get I want you to get what you hear in your head. And, you know, maybe there's a certain point where you're like, okay, we've been working on this for a long time. Let's evaluate why this isn't working. But, um, I really prefer, um, you know, as a producer, I prefer a flat rate, and my commitment to you is that I'll see the song till it's done, you know.
Yeah.
And some songs go really quick and some songs take a long time. I always tell people some songs, and this goes into writing as well, but some songs are microwave songs and some are pot roast songs. Like sometimes you sit down, you write a song in 30 minutes, you're like, wow, this is easy. And then you have a song that you've been working on for like 2 years, and you're like, why can't I know this is good, but like it's not there. And recording can be the same, and it probably won't take 2 years, although it has for me before. But like, it probably won't take 2 years, but it probably won't. You know, very few do you record if unless you're working with a whole band all at once. Like, very few are just gonna like melt together and be finished within an hour or two. That's very, you know, and be what you want them to be and be special and not be like another cookie cutter thing.
Right.
So
I love the idea of a flat rate because I've personally been burned by the hourly rate thing where somebody just drags it on and on and on. You've got so many hours invested into it and then the song's not even done.
yeah,
Or, asking them to just send you what they have and work with somebody else or redo it with somebody else. And it's just like a waste of time because if they're dragging it on and then you've got the stress of like trying to speed up the process to be as few hours as possible, it's not going to turn out great on
no,
either one of those spectrums. So I feel like the flat rate just sets the tone for the whole song, and so the producer will probably do it pretty quickly if they're good at what they do. But you don't have to worry about counting the hours. You can just say, hey, this is my budget per song, this is how many songs I can afford, and then like how to save for it or how much to set aside, and then it's not a surprise at the end.
right. Yeah, that's the other thing is knowing how to budget well. And there's nothing that seems worse to me than being like, wow, this song cost me $1,000 more than I expected it would. And feeling like, okay, I put all this money in, but I can't finish it or whatever. But if you have a flat rate, then up front, you're like, all right, maybe you can't do the record for 6 months because you need to fundraise or like come up with money, but at least this project is going to cost me 10 grand or whatever it is, 5 grand. And you have like, you can prepare for that, or you can tell your Kickstarter, I need this much money to do this project. And instead of being like, I think it should be ballpark, you know, but I've never recorded before, so I don't really know, but I'm hoping that it's right. And then, the thought of like shooting way under, would be just not awesome. It's not a good experience for you creatively, I wouldn't want
Yeah,
that for
exactly. And so I think just in the interview process of talking to producers, just say, hey, how much do you normally charge a flat rate for this song, and like how many songs, tell them how many songs you want to do, ask if they're available to do that, and see if the timeline works with your timeline and your budget, and just see if it's a good fit, because maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but then you'll know.
Yeah,
So it won't be like a surprise later on.
absolutely. And I will say too, my manager would hate that I'm saying this, but when she gets an email, from somebody, she'll basically pass along your songs, and she'll be like, hey, listen to these, like, do you know this person? If I know you, probably just like Instagrammed or texted me or something. But like, if I hear your songs and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love these songs, I'm gonna work with you. Like, I'm gonna, I say budget aside, like obviously I need to like pay my mortgage, but like I'm gonna like, I'll play a ball, because if it's something that I really love, I'm gonna be more likely to be willing to invest, or like figure out a way we can cut a deal, or
Mhm.
maybe it's less songs or whatever.
Yeah, one thing that I've recommended to people is if you're just wanting to get your songs recorded, maybe an acoustic version or like a demo version, a vocal and a guitar for a couple $100, get some kind of quality recording that you can use and release that as a single online, or put one or a couple songs on a CD first and not try to do a full album with a full band if you're not ready to pay
Right,
for it. Maybe you need to tour for a while and build up the money to do a full
right.
band production. So maybe start small.
Yep. I also do, so like, that's how I do like, song production. I also do a thing I've been doing for like the last year where I'll just, if somebody just needs to get some work done like that, I'll charge a day rate. And I'll do whatever you want me to do in that day. So if you want to just blast through and you want to cut 10 guitar vocals in a day, I'll do that for you and send them out. But like once the day, at the end of the day, like it's done. So, I will do, and I do a lot of stuff like, um, I have a lot of gear and I'm set up in a way a lot of producers aren't. So like I can cut really great live drums, and I can cut string sections and stuff like that. So sometimes I just get calls to basically engineer a session. I'm not going to like sit and like produce you through, but like, you know, if people want something like that, or they want to do, if they just have a bunch of songs they want to demo out, to like pitch or to be able to show publishers and stuff, I do that as well. So that's like another way that you can kind of sidestep the the whole thing. If you don't need like a record, but you just need some like clean basic guitar vocals or piano vocals or whatever.
Yeah, I love that, because then you're setting a limit. You're saying this is the day rate, this is how much you're gonna pay for this day, and whatever gets done, and then you know. And
Right.
so I just think it's good to be informed. So let's talk quickly about what not to do when approaching a studio to record. Just like, I don't know, maybe things that you've encountered that you were like, oh, never do this, you know, just to kind of give people an example of, we've kind of talked about what to do, but what are some things that maybe surprised you of how people approach it?
Yeah. I think one of the most frustrating things that I've encountered is when somebody hits me up and they're like, hey, I love what you do. How cheap can you do it for me?
It's a lot
Because
of question.
yeah, and it's not that I'm money hungry. It's more that I want you to have a great product, and money pretty much, not always, but pretty much always equals, if you meet my budget, or if we can come to an agreement, I'll be able to give you all the time in the world. And that's what I want. Like, I want to be able to like really go in and give it tons of time. And usually the people that are like, how cheap can I get it, would be happier with the guy in his garage, you know, with a laptop or whatever. Not always, but if you're looking for as cheap as possible, you're going to get what you pay for. And one thing I tell people is, I'm like, hey, you know, you're going to have this recording for the rest of your life. So my dad always told me to measure twice and cut once. And like, I apply that in a lot of areas of my life, one of them being my work, and that I want to do it right. So if you want to do it cheap and you want to just crank it out, don't call me. You know, I'm trying to make like really high quality records that will also endure for the next 30 years. And you know, yeah, so that's one thing that I run into. The other thing that I think is I've run into with people that are newer to recording, is, and this goes, actually, it's kind of similar in relationships, but like, people don't communicate. So, you know, if you hypothetically, if you come to me, we've never met, you know, and we go out, we get coffee or whatever, we talk about your songs, and we go in and we get in like 2 or 3 days into a song, and then you're like, honestly, I don't like this. Um, that's like a huge waste of my time. And really our time, because we've been working together. But if throughout the process you ask me questions, you're like, hey, I don't hear this, you know, or what are you going to do with drums? Like, what do you think? And then we lay something down and you're like, yes, that's what I want. Or no, it's not quite right. That kind of communication your first time in, don't be afraid. Hopefully you want to be in a with a producer that you respect, but that you can have really open dialogue with. And if you can't have like great dialogue, then it's probably going to be a really bad experience for you, because in the end you're going to wind up with something you don't love. So I would say communication. And then the other thing that isn't like a bad thing, but if you come to me, I want you to have vision. Yes, for what it sounds like, but I want you to have vision for your career. Like, why are you doing this? What are your actionable steps? Why are you recording a full-length album instead of doing a single or an EP? And maybe you don't know the answer to that. That's fine. Tell me. You're like, should I do a full-length album, or should I do an EP or a single? I can guarantee you I'll have a reason for one of those 3 choices for you, or at least some like stuff to think about, you know. And so, but if you just come to me and you're like, I want to record, I don't know, I have 5 songs and just kind of like blah, I have no purpose or vision. And I don't even, as far as vision goes, like, you can give me like I think God's calling me to do this, that's fine, but I want more than that too. I want you to be like, I'm treating this like a business. I'm you know, here's my, like, maybe make a plan, like, you know, for the next 2 years, this is going to be the project that I'm going to tour and promote, and or I'm just going to play locally and do, but this, like, this body of songs encapsulates like what I'm trying to say in this season of my life. So I guess just if you're going to go in with a purpose and go in with a point. And that gives me so much to work with, and it gives me a reason to work for you. If you're like, oh, I'm just hanging out and I have like extra money, or my parents wrote me a check and like I just feel like doing this, that's an okay starting point, but like you need more than that, you know. And maybe I'm driving work away, but I don't really care. Like that to me, I want to make records that have a point, that have purpose, you know.
Yeah, you want to make music with people that, you know, care about what they're doing. They want it to be right. They're willing to do the hard work. And like you said, that communication back and forth of what it should be can really make a magical sound at the end of the project. And so it's so worth asking the questions on the front end, like getting your budget straight, figuring out what the plan is for the recording. I totally agree with all of that. And I think that's really good advice for somebody who's starting and who wants to do it right the first time, who's willing to do the hard work. And so all of this is really, really helpful. Do you have any final words as we wrap up today? Some encouragement for people that are wanting to make their own music?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of said it earlier, but like from a personal place, if you have questions, just ask me. You know, like I want you to make a great record, whether you make it with me or somebody else. And you know, don't be afraid to ask. Communication is so valuable. That will save your life. That will help you sleep at night. You'll know what you need. You'll know what you're looking at. Just ask, you know. And yeah, I think that's the biggest thing.
Yep.
So,
Ask the questions and do the work.
yep. Inform
That's
yourself.
it.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time to just talk through this process, because I think it's going to be really helpful for anyone getting started and just wondering like what it's like to book a studio and to record your own songs. And it's totally doable, and it might be more accessible than people think. So I really appreciate your time to talk through it. It's always fun to talk with you, and I love the music that we've made together. Let's give out your website if people want to contact you, and what's the best way to do that?
Yeah. So my website is just Evan Sieling, my name, and it's spelled EvanSieling .com, or you can message me on Instagram, and my Instagram handle is just Evan Sieling, my name. You can find me on Facebook. Sometimes I'm on Facebook. And yeah, that's pretty much, hopefully you can find me with those ways. If not, just Google me. I'm all over the place.
Just Google me. I love it. Perfect. Thank you so much for being on the show. I'm super excited for what you're creating, and can't wait to work with you some more. So I appreciate your time, and hope you have an awesome rest of your day.
You too. Thanks so much.
I wanted to let you know that I've created a checklist for how to prepare to record your songs in a studio. So if you're thinking about getting your songs recorded, this is a great resource to help you get ready and be prepared. So you can download that checklist. It includes things like how to prepare your songs to record in the studio, what to even ask a producer, and how to find the right producer for your project. So again, you can download that at rusticsongbird.com/checklist.